What's really going on, everyone? Back again with another episode. Before we get into our frequent guest and friend of the pod at this point now, be sure to follow us on all of our social media. That includes TikTok, Twitter, Instagram at WRGO Pod. Be sure to like, listen, and subscribe on wherever you listen to your wherever you listen to your podcast on audio, and be sure to comment on YouTube. Once again, we are back with probably at this point the most frequent guest of the pod, Kayla Pasquetta, who is the founder of the Executive T, a platform that we certainly rely on all of our news to get the news out quick. Kayla, how are you once again?
I'm good. Loaded question these days, but I'm good.
For our YouTube audience, it's like how am I doing? Like you really expect me to answer that like in a good way? Mackenzie and Henry, how are you all doing?
Still standing. Still standing. But no, I'm
Hanging
happy to
on.
be here. Hanging
Yeah, I'm
on.
blessed. I'm blessed. I can't share.
Well, if you missed our first episode, we did one on essentially what companies have been doing pre-Trump. Now that we are about 3 weeks in, it has been a whirlwind of a first kind of 3 weeks that have honestly, as Henry said, that have felt like 4 years already. So I think the one thing that I wanted to start off for food for thought is kind of just get your overall takeaways on Trump's first 3 weeks. Has he done anything that stands out to you? Possible things that could be in the running, even though it took a laundry list. Possible occupying of Gaza, which came out just this week, freezing all foreign aid through the U.S. Agency for International Development, pardoning all January 6th convictions, possible tariff war with Canada and Mexico, attack on DEI, move to end birthright citizenship. There's a ton more stuff that I didn't even include about him now bringing back the federal death penalty, all these other crazy things that he's done. Kayla, has anything in particular stood out to you, or is it just it's all a mess?
Honestly, I forgot he did some of those things until you were listing them out. January felt like a gazillion years. Yeah, aside of him doing things kind of we talk about him blaming DEI on the plane crash?
Oh,
Um,
that was not in that.
yeah. Um, I think it's just been straight chaos. And I think that we also see that they don't know how to govern. I used to have a friend in the administration who would say, like, governing is not easy. And it's not. And this administration is definitely not cut out for it. Hateful stuff that they've done aside, they've just caused a lot of chaos, like that financial federal freeze that I don't know what they tried to implement there. Um, and then saying the programs that they said weren't going to be impacted were actually impacted and are still being impacted because of the complete lack of detail, which I think was on purpose, again, to sow chaos, and it's actually impacting people in real life. And I'm just a little scared to see how his actions are really already threatening our safety, the type of access people have to things. So yeah, it's tough to see. It's been a whirlwind for sure.
Mackenzie.
I mean, my only question now, like obviously everything that Kayla said, but I'm just like, what are the Democrats doing? Like what are you thinking right now? What is the plan of action? And I was listening to the Daily actually today, and the question literally was, where are the Democrats? And I think what we've been talking about on the podcast still is true. Like there is a divided Democrat party, meaning that some might not even see this as catastrophe as we talk about it. Like some of them view it as like, well, it's not as bad as it could be. And then there's other people who do feel like it's a catastrophe. So that in itself, I just feel like when we talk about all of these things that Trump is doing and how to like combat them, if the opposing party isn't even on the same page of how to approach it, then like I don't even know what do we do going forward.
Henry,
When
an
they was
extension
out
of that.
there protesting the other day, they said Elon not in the government. You didn't see that?
That Charlie Murphy was doing that?
Well,
Was
no,
that
it
was Charlie
was
Murphy,
a
not Charlie Murphy.
decent amount of senators or legislative makers that are in Congress protesting in Washington. Basically, Elon's not in the government. They think he's making a lot of the calls and shots, so on and so forth. Um, I personally think what Trump is doing is fear mongering. He's just basically throwing the air that he wants to actually go after, but because of like civil liberties that we've been granted through the Constitution, through legislation, through like Congress, excuse me, he's going to be in court a hell of a lot. Now, the unfortunate truth is Biden did attempt to counteract this proactively by putting the most federal judges in place, a lot of whom are Black women. So it's gonna be very, let's say, like how we heard the news about him basically telling people they can leave the government and get paid up to basically a year's time, and then the next day we see leaders of agencies or certain senators refuting that, saying no, don't listen to this guy, he's just out of his mind. Now I spoke with someone who works decently high up in a government agency, and let's say some persons are taking air quote bait. The thing about the government versus private sector, where he's done this, he's promised persons pay for jobs and then didn't pay them, which that's the concern, right? But with the government, you have certain like things and stipulations in place which kind of protect that. So let's say I'm close to retirement and I bite and I'm like, here go my resignation, make sure I get my pay. You might luck up. Now if you're a federal worker and you're just scared that you might lose your job, I would just really just kind of go through it. It's hard. And that's the unfortunate truth about what we're all experiencing. He's wrecking DEI, he's wrecking workforce, he's wrecking funding. He's trying to create concentration camps. Like the man is just doing a lot of BS, but he's doing it on purpose. He's attempting to put a lot of us in a place where we feel like we're hopeless. We don't have a fight in this. We aren't gonna make actual, progress. That's my spiel. I am not concerned about, bro. Like I have to like train my mind to mentally shift a lot these days. Where I see the news, but I'm not like comprehending it, if that makes sense.
But to that point, I do want to talk to Noah. Like Noah, we were talking before we started about, you're on the ground. You work in government. Like, what is it like? Like, what are people talking about?
And I guess Kayla, this can be a two part since we're both in DC, but I think it's just a mood shift. Like I think it's um as someone who I think got close to a lot of kind of people in Biden world, largely through kind of HBCU stuff at the White House, the Department of Education. It was very diverse. There was a lot of diverse people working on a lot of different things, a lot of people who looked like us. And I think it's easy to say, like, yeah, the representation matters, but I think that representation, as we all know, like it just comes with a certain set of like life experiences and understanding of what all of us kind of understand and go through on a regular basis. That's just not there anymore. And I think the one thing that's like, I know people who have left voluntarily. I know people who have gotten fired on day one. Um, and they were like just good, hardworking Black people. And I think the thing that's scary is that about the what you were saying, Henry, is that even if you take that buyout, there's a hiring freeze federally. So you're not getting that person is not going to be replaced. So let's say 15% of people at the Department of Education take the buyout. They're not getting replaced. That means that 85% of the department will be staffed. And key thing that we all care about won't get done because they
Mm-hmm.
they won't be able to rehire any of those people. So defer to you, Caleb, but I think it's just like a mood shift. Like I think it's just not kind of a no one really knows what's going on because the people I don't know anybody in that kind of space, and the people who are in that space are very insular, and it's just a lot of like I don't know anybody, and I think that's just kind of the difference. But how say you, Kayla, as someone who's also kind of in this area?
Yeah, I think like I've heard kind of like similar things. I have a couple people close to me who work in the government, and just for perspective, so many Black people in the DMV area as a whole are employed by the federal government. So I think definitely scary like for those communities because a lot of us work in government. But I have a few friends like who were working remote, and now they're obviously
Mhm.
going to have to go in the office. But thinking about the setups they had, some people don't even live like in the same area. So I've heard of people who lived in Delaware trying to think, am I going to make this 3 hour commute every day? Am I going to like be able to keep my job? Do I need to uproot my family? So, it's really impacting people I think just an uncertainty, like you never know what he's gonna wake up and try to undo. And like I said, they're not good at governing, so it doesn't seem like there's infrastructure in place, when they are getting rid of these things, like how are you going to replace that? How are you going to make sure these people are still getting the resources that they got from that agency? So it's just like a lot of chaos, I think, and in general, just uncertainty. And I think we hear a lot like, okay, Donald Trump doesn't have the authority to do that. And in some cases, he is going to be challenged in court. In some cases, like who is there to stop him? Are the Republicans in Congress going to stop him? The same Republicans that just confirmed Tulsi Gabbard and are about to confirm RFK Jr. I don't know. Is the Supreme Court going to stop him? The same ones who said that basically he's above the law? I don't know. So yeah, there are some things that he can't do legally, but I don't know who is there to stop that from taking place. I know we were talking about the Democrats earlier. I think they definitely have been getting a little bit louder. They did have that rally at the Treasury, basically saying we didn't hire Elon, and a judge like approved an order today that will like limit his access to some of those Treasury payment systems. A little late, but I think it is like it's not like a big win, but I think it is like a little bit promising. Like if we keep making fusses about things, like something can happen, even with the freeze on federal financial assistance. So we see that like we can still get kind of loud. Like we probably still will get a couple wins right now, but again, uncertainty.
And I think that's a good extension because I think we were a big part of like the conversation that we were having before was like kind of just about Elon and just how he's just kind of this probably the most important person kind of in the government or influencing the government right now, and no one kind of really knows what he does. And I think this kind of gets to almost what you were saying, Mackenzie, about like what Democrats can do. Like, how do we specifically attack Elon Musk? Because I do think he offers kind of a unique opportunity to attack him, but he also just has a level of power and a level of wealth and a level of notoriety that uniquely makes him hard. It's the same thing that makes Donald Trump hard to attack, but you make Elon, and now you're kind of dealing with someone who doesn't have the blowback of anything politically, has the wealth, has the notoriety. How specifically do you think we can attack him and kind of get his ass out of here?
How can we attack Elon? I'm not even sure. I really don't even know the plan of action to attack him. I mean, because to me, some of the stuff is like the writing is on the wall. Like, yes, he is a innovator, but his cars are always being recalled. His
I was about to
like
say, is he an
the
innovator?
innovator in the thought process of some of the ideas that
He
he's
was a
come up
rich
with.
man that got an investment
I'm
and
not saying it like
streamlined an
he
idea
got
that
an he got
probably
an
stole
investment.
from somebody. Come on now, he not that smart. Let's keep it going.
The first man out other than NASA to try to go to space. So like I don't unless you know somebody who was trying to do that, that's why I would say that he was an innovator in that sort. But I mean, who else is trying to go? Who
We're not here
independently
to
was
talk
trying
about how nothing. We
but
his
to
on the government.
but to attack him, I don't even know. I mean,
Bloomberg, Bill Gates.
I wouldn't. I don't think that's the
but
way.
Bill Gates said
I
that
don't
he
That's
think
was
the
that's
he
the way.
problem, though.
Bill
All
Gates
the
just
people.
said that he was impressed by Trump. Like he's been saying that on his little
So
bookstore. So
that's my
he's not gonna stop him.
that's you know how Black people often we have to deal with individualism versus community. That's not our thing. That's not our issue anymore. I
What
think.
isn't our issue?
Like we need to widen our gap. Like the American people who actually give a freak about saving the democracy, we really need to understand like what community looks like. And to combat a person like Elon, you're gonna have to have a big fish or a couple big fish in the game. Because I mean, if
And
he
who
has,
are those big fish that are
I
in the
just
game? I
named
feel
two
like the
of
big
them.
fish all like Elon.
But
Yeah, I
that's
don't think.
essentially the problem, though. Biden
But
And
won
so then how
because
do you dismantle the big fish if all the big fish like the big fish? I don't
so like I
understand.
think we would go into that conversation. We in my mind, we would go into the conversation we had previously to where we're saying these conglomerate entities or these bigger fish who
Conglomerate.
have more power and control that essentially allot the resources that we use. If they're all on the same playing field, the fight kind of is
I'm
unless
going
people
to.
really take back to the streets, and that's the
I'm
like
The
twofold of it.
streets.
I'm gonna push back on this because I don't think that we can get Elon out with just another billionaire, because then we're creating, I think, we're creating another problem. But also, I just don't actually think that like all of a sudden they're going to say, "Hey, Elon, I don't like what you're doing," because even though they might actually understand it, or say like you're using your influence and what you feel like is your interest, just like I do in a different context. I do think that there are like unique individual cases that like we have to like start shining out and kind of highlight. Hey, actually, the people who you know might like you, you're actually hurting them. And there was a really interesting story that I read today about how them cutting off aid to the U.S. Agency for International Development actually hurts farmers in Kansas, because who do you think buys those crops?
Yeah.
USAID. So like,
Yeah.
how do we? And I think that's like the media story. And Kayla, I know that this is like kind of your beat. Like, how do we actually start telling those stories of like, hey, actually, this farmer, their products are going bad, or now they're
But
actually not selling anything. Like, I don't.
but
I think we have to like
I would
highlight examples of this shit like that.
I would just say this though about the stories, like even previously before the election, I feel like some of these stories be told and people still like ignore these stories. You don't
That's
think
what
that
I'm
these
Yeah,
stories?
saying.
I was
Messaging
gonna say,
is
I
not
think these
gonna
stories.
change nothing.
No,
Messaging not gonna
I
do
think
nothing.
messaging can, but
I think it
that's why
can.
I think where the Democratic Party needs to do better in connecting with making that there. I feel like there's just a disconnect from the farmer to the Democratic Party. Just when they talk, when I feel like the branding of the party doesn't necessarily cater to the farmer. Like I feel like farmers in the Midwest are probably identifying with the Republican Party. Not all, but I just feel like there is
At
a
least culturally,
disconnect.
they
Yeah,
identify with that.
culturally,
They
there's
identify
a
with that.
disconnect. So I think that the Democrats can probably, I feel like that would be a way where they need to um identify a storyline or something to connect with on the other side. But the stories are being told. People knew that this man like showed us who he was, and he literally still sat up there on the debate stage and said he did not have a plan. People still voted for him. And it's just like I don't even know how you really connect with people who still say yes to that.
Now
And Caitlin, yeah, go ahead.
that is very accurate because I'm not saying this in a shady way, but a lot of people are not very smart and they don't read beyond things. And everything that Trump is doing right now, like there was a whole 1,000-page book of it, Project 2025, that was talked about a lot. It was mentioned at the BET Awards, it was mentioned on debate stages, it was mentioned in ads. Project 2025 was spread everywhere. And I think that some people have kind of a disconnect with fear mongering and they feel like, oh, like they're just trying to scare us. Like it's not actually that bad. And I think it takes people being impacted by bad things for them to actually feel it. Like to give you an example, some people in the Latino community who supported Trump, they felt like, oh, we're tax-paying citizens, we're contributing to our community. He's only looking for people who are doing illegal stuff. He's only targeting immigrants who are, I don't know, bringing in drugs, doing these crimes. I'm not going to be affected. My family members aren't going to be affected, but they are because to them, you being an immigrant is the crime. Like you can be, living your life and that is a crime to them. And so we see deportation happening. People who said they were worried about the economy, all of these executive orders that we've mentioned, none of them have had to do with the economy. None of them are making life cheaper, more affordable. It's actually causing tariffs that are making things more expensive. And so I think now that people are experiencing it, like that might start to contribute to things. Another thing is I think we need to get a message and just repeat it, repeat it, repeat it, repeat it, repeat it. Donald Trump, that is kind of how he thrives. He says things that are not necessarily true, but they stick with people. People feeling like, oh, I had more money in my pocket when Trump was around. They saw his signature on a stimulus check. These like little marketing things that Donald does are very effective because they stick with people. Again, are they true? No, but they stick with people. And the last thing I can think of is really kind of investing like in the Democratic media and the type of people that we're reaching and being on those podcasts. I know obviously Kamala Harris, she had a really bad deck of cards dealt to her and she had very limited time to accomplish something. But just as she was making those sprints on those podcasts, I think we need to be doing that year round. Like we need to be talking to people, not just 3 months before the election. We need to be doing it all of these 4 years. Like we need to be investing in that infrastructure, podcast influencers, often storytelling, all of that. Like just approaching this from a marketing perspective. That's kind of what moves the needle for people. So I think it's really a combination of things. But yeah, and as hard as it is to do, I think we can't focus so much on like, oh, Trump is bad. Like when we're looking towards 2028, he's, God willing, not going to be able to run again. And the threat of Trump will be gone. So it's really on Democrats to kind of paint their message of like, this is what we can do for you. Not just Trump is bad, because I don't think that really sticks with people. Like they know that he's bad, but really painting like our vision of what Democrats can do for you, the type of America you can have, how we're going to let you afford things. Like, yeah.
Can I ask you a question, Kayla? And I think this actually goes to everyone. I agree. And I think the hardest part about that is that I think to talk about that vision, and Kamala did this a lot. She talked about that vision. It just took a long time to fully get there. And I think oftentimes there's a bit of an attention gap between where I think even with Trump, where he's clearly just saying, hey, we want to get immigrants out of there. That's a quick thing that I think everybody can pick up on. How do you make it stick? Because I do think like the Democrats' vision is long because it has to be, because we want to actually do so many things in government. There's like policies that they want to do. It just takes a while to explain. How do you condense it in a way that can, to your point, be easily repeated? Because I think that to me, that's like one of the difficult parts about this is that like everybody taking this really big message and condensing it and hitting it over and over again. How do you condense all
The
I
these
thing is,
things?
oh,
part of
sorry. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Caitlin.
no, I was gonna say part of it is the messenger. Like
I agree.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
I know people have mixed feelings about them. Like looking at AOC and Jasmine Crockett, I love how they are communicating to people. They are being authentic. They're breaking things down. They are like translating it in a way where you don't have to watch the news every night to understand what they're saying. So like having AOC talk to a voter as opposed to Nancy Pelosi or Chuck Schumer, like someone, a person of color, someone who is younger, someone who has not been like a career politician that people are like, oh, like you've already been in office and you haven't done anything for me. Like we need some freshness to the communication.
And I would also say, like, well, you don't have to condense it if you don't start 3 months before. Start telling the story now. So that when it is 3 months before the election, we're so familiar with the story, it feels like, oh duh, this is what they're about. Oh, they already had this policy. She was talking about this back when Trump was already advocating. Because who did do the who was the senator who had the rally, who was leading it? Because I also felt like when I saw that video, when I saw the protest happening, I was like, he looks like somebody positioning to run. And it's already planting the seeds, like being the leader, trying to, even though I don't think that the solution is to blame Elon Musk for all of this nonsense, but just seeing someone step outside and be that voice, that's how you already start planting the seeds. So when 3 months before and you're on the debate stage, you already are a familiar face because you were leading the charge long time ago. So
Henry, before we close out.
I'm standing on what I said. I think that the Democratic Party messaging is there. They just don't have anyone to echo those messagings.
they
I
don't
think
have anyone to echo. I feel like they
not
have people
like
to
when you
echo.
look at higher leadership in the Democratic Party is not representative of
I would
like
agree.
that we're going to receive that message from. Two, when we look at funding and being able to widespread that message with reliable sources or sources that we trust or depend on, like it becomes who's going to fund this stuff, which we need a big fish. So like for me, I definitely think the Democrats have the playing parts. The problem again goes back to the lack of community that's being acknowledged. What was it? Muslims for Trump or somebody for Trump changed their name because he went after Gaza. And to Kayla's point of like people not understanding that, oh shit, this is real life. It actually does affect me in real time. I'm not this outlier, then like we not gonna get anywhere. Black people, we understand this. Black people know, okay, like it can sound crazy, but my taxes are gonna go up. Look at them damn egg prices. I'm not gonna get hired nowhere. It's gonna just be harder. Police gonna be stopping, frisking. We know these things. So like explaining that to other persons who have grown with the same like white entitlements, they have to get slapped in the face a couple times. They have to get knocked down a couple times and redefine how they think about community.
There's also an elephant in the room. I think, obviously, I think all of us are huge fans of AOC and Jasmine Crockett. They're very good at communicating to audiences who look like us. We are
They will
actually not
never
the
put
voting.
them to be the face
No,
of the party,
no,
though.
no. But what I'm saying is that, like, that to me, the best speakers are people who are not white. We are not the voting block problem. Someone white needs to communicate this, and I don't think there is any white politician who is capable of doing that on at least the
I
Dem
don't think they're
side.
not capable. Don't say not capable because
I don't.
they're very much more, they're capable of doing it. Now,
I can't.
will they
I
do
don't
it's
believe
this
that.
Gen Z guy that was fired up the other day. He's more than capable of doing it. Now, would he do it because it compromises his base or his own self-interest? Now, that's the question at hand, realistically. I think even in Senate, John Ossoff, he's a cool, liberal-looking white guy.
He
He's
doesn't speak.
capable of communicating the message. Now, is he
He
going to
doesn't
do
speak
that to
though. He doesn't do
compromise?
it. He
That's what
doesn't
I'm
do it
telling
though.
you. That's the question. I don't think it's about capability. The problem with a lot of elected officials is they're not doing it for the people. They're doing it for their own self good. Like I don't want to say what I'm gonna say, but point. Um, they do it for their own self good, bro. They're
Or
not in there
rather,
every
and
day
and then
concerned about the people's lives because
I'm
they
going to
have
push back.
a
I'm going to push
lifestyle.
back very quickly because I know we're on the time limit. But I don't even think that they're doing it, not doing it for their own public good. I don't think they see the problem the same. I'm
I don't think that's true
genuinely,
either,
which is
Noah.
what I said
yeah.
at the beginning.
I don't think they see. I don't think they see the
You
problem like
don't
we
think
do.
white people are aware of what's going on and
No,
It's
fighting
not
to
about being aware. I think the
no.
point is some people don't think it is as a catastrophe because if you look at it, some of them think, well, there was some places that we did very well during the election. It could have been worse. They mentioned a election in the 1980s where the Democrats only had one state. So if you lived through that, you would look at this and say it's not that bad.
So who would say that though?
A
I think a
lot
lot of
of the
people.
party. That's what
No,
I'm
no, no, no.
saying.
A
They're the
black a
no,
Jasmine.
It's not about
I'm
that.
not
It's not
talking
about that.
about that. I'm talking about the party as a whole.
Well, that honestly, I told somebody this the other day, and then I'm done. Black, like realistically, like like black people need to find. We need to start our own political party. We
Oh my
control
god.
the dollar spin in America, bro. If we did that and had real, not this fake leadership, but real leadership, oh, we taking
We
over.
don't have time to talk
No, we're not
about,
doing it.
yeah, we don't have time literally, and we don't have time to formulate another party. That's like them people who say during the election, oh, I'm gonna
Green
vote for
Party.
the Green Party or whatever. Like, give me a break, please.
Oh, what's okay? The question at hand is, what's the solution? How do we defeat Trump? How do we defeat Elon? We got 30 seconds. Go.
My final answer is start telling the
Okay.
story
Okay.
now.
Okay.
Start planting the
Here's
seeds now.
here's the first step you can do. Follow the executive T for all of your news that will help you be informed. Kayla, please drop all of the socials where people can follow you because, like I said, we think that you are probably the best person that we know who is actually giving people real time information about what is happening in very easy ways that they can digest. So please tell people where they can follow you, the executive T, on all of your platforms.
Oh, thank you, Noah. You can follow the Executive T on Instagram at the Executive T, and you can also find us on Threads and TikTok. We are expanding our platform, so keep an eye out for that. But yeah,
Wait,
thanks
before we go, who y'all got for the Super Bowl?
about that. After watching Travis Kelce yesterday, so I'm a Commanders fan. I was like, I don't think I can root
Ugh.
for the Eagles, but I think now I gotta root for the Eagles, so I got the Eagles.
I'm rooting for
Eagles,
the
definitely.
actual black man at quarterback.
Yeah, Patrick Mahomes supports Trump. If you didn't know that, go Eagles.
Go Shamar
Fly,
Moore.
fly, Eagles, fly.
There it is. So once again, thank you, Kayla. Be sure everyone to follow the executive T. We will include everywhere where you can follow her in the show notes. But be sure to follow us as well at WRGO Pod on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. Be sure to like, listen, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And be sure to leave us a comment down on YouTube, where now we have revamped. You can watch both all of our videos in full, along with shorts, along with special clips of our new episodes, including this. Thank you.